It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Folks, the news over the last week or so, everybody's trying to figure out what's really going on with the Arkansas teacher retirement system. They were the lead plaintiff in a class action lawsuit that yielded a $300 million judgment. There was $75 million or so that went to legal fees, but there was also $4 million of that $75 million that went to another attorney as a finder's fee or referral fee, introducing the law firm and the Arkansas teacher retirement system. There's a judge in Massachusetts that's been asking questions, maybe not liking some of the answers. The allegations are maybe political favors or kickbacks. The Arkansas General Assembly Joint Performance Review Committee met yesterday to try to get to the bottom of this, to try to find some more answers. Joining us now to talk a little bit more about this, reporting on this, is we have State Representative Mark Lowery joining us, who is the co-chairman of the Joint Performance Review Committee. Mark, welcome back to the program, sir.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate the invitation.
Yes, sir. Can you tell us, was there any progress made? Do we know more information about, the status of this and the reporting of this? What did you guys discover yesterday?
Well, first, let me just say that Joint Performance Review met in a joint meeting with Joint Retirement. Representative Doug House is actually the one that brought this issue forward and asked if Joint Performance Review would meet in conjunction with him in his committee. Frankly, we had a 3-hour hearing yesterday. I thought a lot was revealed. But you wouldn't know that, frankly, by reading the news story today. And I have the utmost respect for Mike Wickline, who wrote the article. But let's just say, you've already mentioned some of the dollar figures that are involved, and money can just about put together any story that you want. Mm-hmm. And the Labaton law firm that was involved in all of this, they have a paid lobbyist in the state of Arkansas, and let's just say that lobbyist earned their keep yesterday in being able to plant what I think is just the most ridiculous type of defense for what took place. So I'm not very encouraged this morning. To tell you the truth, I wasn't encouraged last night when I watched Channel 4's coverage of it, and all they wanted to talk about was the money that's being recovered by the state of Arkansas. Which I don't want. I don't want to give that short shrift. There has been recovery of money. But no one mentioned the fact that Channel 4 didn't, and the newspaper article today didn't mention that in this particular case, where $75 million in attorney's fees were paid out, $4.1 million was paid to a firm that didn't do any work. The Arkansas teacher retirement system's total recovery is probably going to be no more than $300,000.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's criminal.
Yeah, well, so how does that work? How does that happen? How do we if they've paid the legal fees of $75 million, this is in addition to what the law firm gets? They get the legal fees and they get a portion of it?
No, well, they operated on the contingency fee.
Okay.
So the $300 million is the figure everyone's throwing around. It's like, oh boy, that's a big deal. Well, you've got a large number, and I don't know how many are in the class. It was a class action lawsuit. So all of that money is split after the attorney's fees get their 20% or whatever, which was, I guess it's maybe 25% because there was $75 million. But, Mr. Hopkins, representing teacher retirement, he hasn't gotten teacher retirement engaged in a number of class action lawsuits. Cumulatively, yes, there probably have been some large receipts for teacher retirement, and I think that's fine. It was discovered that there was fraud in some of the handling of different financial portfolios and all that. The state of Arkansas has perfect right to recover, but the ones that benefited from this are the attorneys, the law firms. And, Mr. Hopkins said that he put in hundreds and hundreds of hours on this particular case, and yet the state of Arkansas on this particular case will only net $300,000. That just doesn't sound like very sound fiduciary duties by the executive director, especially when we find out that there are allegations of campaign payoffs and favors.
Okay. So
made in the state
so
of Arkansas.
so you're kind of skeptical of the leadership of Arkansas Teacher Retirement. I mean, is that kind of what you're saying, as well as the big attorney's fees and that sort of thing? What about the allegations also, State Representative Mark Lowery, of political favors or kickbacks? I mean, you have the Texas lawyer writing to them saying, they're unpleased with their compensation. We have the emails where they say, we've spent considerable time and money and favors in Arkansas to connect Arkansas Teacher Retirement with the Labaton law firm. Did that come out? Do we know anything conclusive yet?
Well, we talked about it yesterday, but if you will read that newspaper story today, there was absolutely no reference at all to that. What there was a large cover story that Tim Herron, who was one of the lawyers with the Chargas and Herron law firm that received this $4.1 million for not doing any work other than the political favors, that Mr. Herron is no longer with that firm. That's the cover story. And that Mr. Herron did not receive any of this money. Well, when $4.1 million goes to a law firm and you've got two partners, and by the way, the Chargas and Herron law firm is still in practice. They are still incorporated in the state of Arkansas in good standing today. Secretary of State's office has record that they are still a joint entity. But when the money comes in, there's going to be a distribution somehow, indirectly. I mean, to say that Mr. Herron did not receive any of that money is just absolutely. It's just I have never been so frustrated about trying to get to the bottom of something and recognizing that, frankly, the big money is going to end up winning the day.
Wow. Your colleagues feel the same way, I'm assuming. I mean, I know you don't want to put words in their mouths, but I mean, was everybody pretty much shocked that this is what's been going on?
Well, I think they were shocked yesterday, and I think that there was very little pushback from those who I think normally would have defended Mr. Hopkins and the work that took place. I haven't talked to any colleagues today to see what their read is on after reading the newspaper article. But we pointed out yesterday that there were tens of thousands of dollars of travel for Mr. Hopkins paid for by Labaton, where he was reimbursed directly, not the teacher retirement system reimbursed, but Mr. Hopkins received money that was wired directly into his personal account, and he did not report this on his statement of financial interest, which is required. But again, the defenders will say, well, he was doing the work of the state, and we recovered $300,000 in this case, and we recovered money in other cases, and it's all copacetic. And I'm just saying, it's not. It's an appearance of wrongdoing, and that should be enough for someone to have to step down. And I was asked yesterday if I thought that George Hopkins should step down, and I deferred and said, well, that's the decision of the board. But I'm just going to say this morning that based on his performance yesterday and inconsistencies in his testimony, yes, he should step down.
Wow, that's news here. State Representative Mark Lowery saying George Hopkins, the executive director of the Arkansas Teacher Retirement System, should step down. That is certainly, I think a lot of people saw that coming. I mean, just based on what we were reading, Mark. State Representative Mark Lowery, where do we go from here? What recourse, aside from calling for him to step down or otherwise, what recourse do you guys have? What's next?
Well, again, and I will, after I've had a couple more cups of coffee and I've calmed down a little bit and look at this in retrospect, I may have a different opinion. But right now, I'm just not very hopeful that through the legislative process and the review process that we're going to be able to accomplish much. I can only hope, and we've heard reports that that based on the special master's work in looking at these attorneys' fees and looking at various aspects of that State Street case, that the FBI in that jurisdiction is looking into it. And we can only hope that they are going to travel to Arkansas, or to Houston, Texas, and look at further aspects of it. And that's my hope that truth will prevail at some point. But frankly, the news representation, and it's just very frustrating. I mean, I was sitting up in the chairman's seat, and I can see the lobbyists work in the room. And I know the connections. I know who the lobbyists are, and I know who they were representing. And they're working the room, and they're on their phone sending text messages to legislators that are on the panel and planning questions with them. And it's just frustrating.
Trying to kind of sweep this all under the rug. Seems like it's business as usual. I mean, Mark, there's corruption headlines, and I know there may be, different, kind of different scams or different, subject matter with each, corruption charge or whatever that you see in the headlines. But, I mean, this is very frustrating from a standpoint of, this year, 2018, has revealed a lot of corruption. There's been a lot of guilty pleas, and now here, and we've been covering it, and now here you are saying, you know what, looks like the FBI has something else to look into.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly keeping them busy, and there's a lot of need for reform, and I understand, the state Senate has changed some rules regarding ethics. I think the House of Representatives will need to take up some things. I have long pushed for stronger. We have a rule that deals with conflicts of interest, but it's never invoked. It's not very strong at all. I think even what the Senate has adopted, that if a senator has a personal conflict on an issue, all they have to do is submit a letter saying, here's my conflict, but they don't have to recuse. Well, that's a joke.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely a joke. And but beyond that, the other issue that we have, and you're right, a lot of the scandals are involving legislators, but we really do nothing to stop the fact that those coming out of the executive branch are able to go right into private business or work for businesses that have done state business with the state, with that regulator. We have no restriction on that. We have a cooling off period for legislators becoming lobbyists, but we have no such arrangement where state employees cannot go to work for the very companies that they were regulating. And that is a huge loophole. And I don't think that we're ever going to deal with corruption and graft and insider trading in the state of Arkansas until we stop that kind of revolving door.
I agree. That certainly is a good idea. It needs to be stopped as well. And of course, you have the story of the former DHS employee who also has now been charged and was working for Preferred Family Healthcare, but before was working for the state of Arkansas. State Representative Mark Lowery, I so appreciate you coming on the program, shedding some light on this situation with the Arkansas teacher retirement. And I'm like you. I mean, I hope there's more legislative inquiries. I hope we can get more information. But I also hope that justice is served here. I hope the FBI does what they need to do, and I hope it's not delayed. And I really appreciate what you did yesterday, sir. And I appreciate you coming on the program and educating the audience.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you putting up with my frustration this morning. But it's at it's at an all-time peak right now.
Listen, I live in a perpetual state of frustration, so you're in good company. We're like minds, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Folks, the phone number 870-275-9799.